Okay, good morning everybody, and another round of coffee and questions, and this is part 5. This will be the last one on this trailer restoration. So what we're going to talk about in this one is we're going to talk about the wiring and the headaches that I ran into, or the problems that I had, doing the wiring of it. Then we're going to go over the costs of what everything cost me and what I've got into it, up to the completion point. So I'm going to change the video and we'll start talking about the wiring, and I'll show you how I approached it and what I went out and bought. Okay, so the first thing I did is I did a web search and I came across this wiring diagram. Now, in the one that I bought, it's similar to this, where you have a brown and a yellow going down the driver's side, and you have a brown and a green going down the passenger side. And the only thing that it didn't have is I didn't buy the running, the rear markers, those 3 lights in the very back. The kit didn't come with it, but you could buy them extra if you wanted to. I just chose not to. I didn't need them. So this is the way that the wiring is going to work. So when I'm underneath of it, I'm going to pull those wires down each side, just like you see here in the diagram. And the side markers, they tap into the brown. I'll go over how I did that, because I did have the running lights. And the ground, of course, like I said, is in the very front, and I'll go over all of that. So I'm going to change the picture. We'll get into the discussion, and I'll tell you how I approached this when I was out there actually working on it. Okay, first thing, of course, before I get started, just some very basic tools. I got a pair of cutters, I got a pair of strippers right there, those are the little red handled ones. I got a crescent wrench, pair of pliers, wire crimping tool, that's the one that's got Craftsman on the handle. I got some black tape, and I got some butt connectors. Now, I didn't have to use all of these, but these were just the basic tools I took out with me to be able to wire this thing underneath of the trailer, front to back. So let me change the picture and I'll move into a discussion on those butt connectors. Okay, so what you have is a decision to make on how you're going to join wires together. And there's lots of different methods, and there's lots of different ways that people do it. Now, the picture on the very upper left shows where somebody took and they put the wires together and they twisted them together. And then you can either wrap these with black electrical tape, or you can go over them with heat shrink. Now, that works. I'm not saying it doesn't. I didn't feel that that was the best way. And then the other way that you could do it is on the bottom right here to my left. These are Scotch locks. People get confused, like they're a pain in the butt to use. Well, they're not. They're very easy to use if you use them correctly. And you can take a look on the picture over here on my right. When you do this, I'll use the example of attaching your running lights. You would take that brown wire and you would lay it into this Scotch lock, and the brown one is going to run from one end to the other all the way through, just like you see in the picture up here. But both of these wires are blue, so it's hard for me to explain. But the one on the top would be the brown wire, and it would run through the Scotch lock. The one from the trailer coming over, on the inside of these Scotch locks, there's it's like a dead end, and you would put the wire into that dead end one, and you would clamp these over, okay, like you see in the picture straight up above where the channel locks are, and then you would press down on that metal tab, and that cuts into the wire and it joins and makes the connection. And then that little tab, like over here on my left, that little blue tab, it flips over and it locks down and it holds it. And there's plenty of videos on how to use these Scotch locks, but it's a method I chose not to use. It's okay, you can use it. It has worked. I have done it in the past. I decided to go with butt connectors like you see over on the far right. And I bought the gold-plated ones. They were about 30 cents, maybe 40 cents more per pack than the generics. And everybody says, well, these gold-plated butt terminals, they conduct electricity much better. And I figured, look, for 40 cents, I'm not going to get into an in-depth, debate on what works better, the non-gold-plated versus the gold-plated. I went ahead and I bought the gold-plated. And with these, you're going to strip off a very small amount of wire on each end, and then you just join them into this tube here. And then you're going to use those crimpers like I showed you in the other picture, and you're going to press down firmly on it. Now, the crimpers will show you where the 14 and the 16 gauge, it's notched out on those pliers, so that you put it in there and you have it in the correct one, so that when you clamp down with a lot of force, you're not cutting through the butt connector and screwing this thing up. So I use the wire crimpers. People before just use pliers. Yeah, you can do that. That's okay. I just happen to have the correct wire crimpers around in my toolbox. So, but you could get away with using pliers. I'm not saying that you can't. Just be careful. I mean, if you take a look through the inside of the tube, you'll see where there's like a little slit. So you just want to be careful. I mean, when you press down on that you're actually crimping, correctly, the inside of that tube down onto the wire. But this is the way that I chose to do it. We'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute when we get to see some better pictures. But again, the brown wire would run through the Scotch lock. The trailer wire would be the one that dead ends into it, like you see over here to my right on that picture. That bottom wire that doesn't run all the way through it, that would be like the running light coming in. The brown wire would run all the way through it, and you would just fold over that tab. You would use your pliers, press down on that metal clip, it makes the connection, and then fold the plastic over, down, and it clicks in. Let's move on and I'll show you the next picture and we'll get into further discussion. Okay, so this is a photo of one of the mounting brackets. You can see where the paint's chipping up, it's rusted, it looks bad. I got out my 4.5-inch angle grinder and it took a matter of seconds to clean these up and make them look like shiny steel again, and they were ready for me to go ahead and attach the running lights. You'll also see these are the old wires when I cut the lights free. Now, I did not remove the old wires, I just cut them free because when I'm underneath of here, and I'm going to show you in a minute, there's a lot of tube steel that the wire runs through for protection, and it was a lot easier for me to use the old wiring and attach the new wiring and then just pull it through. It took me a matter of minutes to do it that way, and I'll show you a picture here in a sec and I'll show you how I did that. Okay, so here's a picture of me laying down under the trailer, and I'm more towards the very front of it, and this is the old wiring, and this is just how it was in there. And so, like I said, I didn't just start cutting and ripping it out. I was going to use it like a fish tape, which if you have one, you can use a fish tape because there are longer pieces of this rectangular tube steel that the wire runs through. But you could use a fish tape, you could use some coat hangers tack welded together, you could use a long metal rod, you could use whatever you come across, to get this wire pulled through the trailer. I use the old wiring itself. I just wrapped them around each other, threw some black electrical tape around it to secure it, and I just pulled them right on through, except for where it goes through the frame. I had to stop and of course feed it through the smaller holes in the frame itself. It probably took me about 10-15 minutes to pull both sides all the way on down and get them where I needed them to be. So now let me switch and I'll tell you some of the little bit of headaches that I ran into. Okay, so the first picture over here on the left, here I am on the front of the trailer. And after I had the wires pulled the way that I needed to the back to give myself enough slack to get up to the back lights, which we'll go over in a minute, I was short in the front because the trailer's so long, the kit did not accommodate, a trailer that was as long as the one that I have. So I had to add wire to it, which I wasn't real thrilled about because I really didn't like the idea of having to cut into this wiring harness. But I did buy those gold butt connectors, and I knew that if I was going to connect anything, this is the method that I wanted to use. So I went ahead, the pigtail that came with it for the other side, the part that fits to the truck or the vehicle, I didn't need because I already have one. So I took the wires and I cut them free from that part, and I used them here to lengthen what was on the trailer to make it plenty long enough to be able to reach. Otherwise, it simply didn't reach from one connection to another because, like I said, because of the length of the trailer. So you'll see in the picture here, you'll see the black tape up above because I wrapped each one of these with black electrical tape after I used the butt connectors. Like I said, you strip a small portion, like about 1/8 of an inch or so, you slip it into the butt connector. You use the wire crimping tools like the red ones you see in the picture and I showed you in the previous one, and it has a notch cut out in the handle of the pliers there, and it'll tell you which one's the 14-16 gauge. You slip it into there and you press down real hard and it crimps and puts those wires in there, like locked tight. And I always take not hard, but I tug on them to make sure that I have a really strong connection. And then I go ahead and I attach the other ends. And then I wrap them, like I said. So that's the picture here on the left showing you how I lengthened the wires. The picture over on the right. Okay, so now I had to do the same thing with the grounding wire. Now the grounding wire is white, but what I had left over is I had new green, wire. So I went ahead, I used the butt connectors. I made it long enough. I came up to the side of the trailer. I hit the side of the trailer with my 4.5-inch angle grinder and got it down to bare steel. And I used self-tapping screws. And that's easy to do. I'm going to show you a picture. We'll have a quick discussion about it. And this is how I secured it to the frame. So let me change the picture and I'll show you a better view of the self-tapping screws. Okay, the picture above my head, I did a previous video where I put some hooks up in a lady's trailer for her. And rather than bolt them and so forth, I use self-tapping screws. And now this is a picture of one. Now they come in Phillips head. They come in all different kinds, you know, the standard heads, whatever. I use the bolt type heads. I mean, I think that they're better because if I ever want to take them off, you can. And what's nice about these is, like I made a comment, that each screw is like having a drill bit. You put this on your cordless drill and it's sharp enough in the front where I don't need to use a punch or anything like that. I put it right up to the trailer steel and I start my drill off. Now it's just like with any other metal drilling. I mean, you're going to go slow. I pressed hard. This thing will cut in just like a drill bit. It'll work its way in and then it'll self-tap all the way through that steel. And I can take this off and I can put it back on. And it's just like putting like a nut and a bolt together. It'll bolt right back on. I mean, perfectly fine. It'll go right back in. So this is the reason why I paid. These things are not cheap. I forgot how much they are. They're rather pricey if you get the really good ones. These are made out of stainless steel. My previous video I went over the grade of stainless steel, so forth. But anyway, I attached the grounding wire to the trailer using this method. It was fast, it was easy, and it's damn secure. These are great screws when you run into the need for them. I have 2 or 3 different sizes out in a little sorting box. I mean, and I use them frequently when I need to. All right, let's change the picture. Let's move forward and let's talk about the rest of the wiring. Okay, now here we're looking at the taillights in the back, you know, the taillights, brake lights. And you'll see in the back of these, a lot of them you have different kind of wiring attachments. On mine, it looked just like this. And if you look at the, the top here, it's kind of nice. It tells you which side the brown goes on and which side that the green goes on. Or if I had the other one up here, it would tell you which side the yellow goes on. So it's easy to tell which is going to be the right, the left. You can tell by the turning signal part of it too. But here's the attachment. And what you do is you strip off enough wire so where you're about 1/8 of an inch or so, and you push it literally into one of the holes. So the brown, I would just push the wire in. And as you push it in, you're going to feel it grab and it'll snug. And it's nice because it almost self-clamps. And then you'll do the same thing with the green and then you're done. Now there where you see where it says tall brown, there's a channel right there. So you can take the wires after you've actually plugged them in, flatten them out and run them like to the right over here where you see that channel. And then when the bolt's attached to the steel and you tighten it up, you're not smashing the daylights out of the wire. So this is a nice little setup for the kit. Like I said, it was $25 out at Pep Boys is where I got mine. It wasn't on sale. It's just the price that I paid. And, it's just a nice standard kit. It's not the LED. For a good LED kit, you're going to push $80, $90, somewhere like that. This is $25. It was good enough for just a utility trailer. So this is what I chose to use. Okay, so we have the wiring pretty much done except for on those running lights or those side markers. So the way that I did it, I cut the wire, the brown wire, and I turned around, I stripped both ends, I wrapped them together, I slipped it into a butt connector, I secured it. Then I took that running light or that side marker wire, I stripped it, I put it in the other side of the butt connector, I crimped them both down, and all the butt connectors I wrapped with black electrical tape, just for added protection and, against the elements. So that's the way that I did it for the side markers. Now let me show you this last picture and we'll wrap it up and we'll talk about the cost. Okay, here we go. This is the last picture and you'll see the taillights is on there, but this was a test fit. I hadn't put them on there permanently yet. You'll see that's the old wire coming up through the rectangular steel. The new wire, when I pulled it through, I brought it up the same way. I came around the back side of that angle iron and the wire would go in between that channel and back of the light, that black light like I showed you that's on there, and the actual angle iron so it doesn't smash the daylights out of the wire. Then I secured them back onto that bracket and I'm done. Now pretty much the only thing left is to do some minor sanding and touch-up work, and this thing will look pretty damn close to being new. And I'm glad I did the project. I'm glad it turned out the way that it did. My headaches were in just lengthening the wire, but like I said, I use those gold-plated butt connectors. That's the way that I did it. There's lots of methods. There could be faster, easier methods. Just the way I chose to do it because I felt that it was actually the better of all the alternatives. Okay, so what did things cost me? So the Herculiner was about $60 a gallon. I used 2 gallons, so there's $120 there. I bought the Ultimate Jack from Tractor Supply along with the wheel. So that's about another $75 there. I paid about another $40 to $50 in Rust-Oleum, that clear gloss, white paint. I went to eTrailer and I bought the spare tire rim and the mounting bracket. All in all, it was $150. One direction or the other. It was roughly $150. It was $125 for the rim and the tire, and it was paid another $25 for the mounting bracket. So right around $150. When I was out at Harbor Freight, I bought that dual lock pack, $6-7 with 4 keys. So that way I had a lock to wrap, for a chain or something around the spare tire, as well as, the lock box in the front. The light kit I got out at Pep Boys. It was $25, plus tax. So, and then I bought the butt connectors at about $6 a pack. They weren't not cheap. So it was about another $12-15 there, with tax and everything. The flap wheels, the MIG gas, the MIG wire, all that stuff really didn't cost me anything because I had it. But, there's a lot of, time and effort, that went into doing this, but it was a fun project. I got to do things the way that I wanted by replacing the chain like you see here in the picture. This is the original chain. I put one on that I had, it was a little bit better chain on both sides, and I created, another identical, locking pin or whatever you want to call it here out of rebar. So, I was able to make this thing look right again. And then, like I said, sand it all down, make it look good with a wire wheel. If I had to go out and buy the wire wheel, I happen to have them. I think they, a good one's are going to run you anywhere from $12, $15, $18. Something like that. All in all, as one of the people put in the comment, hey, you got to be getting up close to $1,000. Yeah, I had budgeted myself for $500 to put into it because I knew that, the jack, the spare tire, the rim, and these things were going to be a little bit costly. I got a pretty good break when I got the Herculiner on sale for $60 a gallon because Pep Boys runs an advertisement occasionally selling it at a discount. So, yeah, that's probably pretty correct. When I added everything up and threw in all the miscellaneous stuff. So I figure I'm right at or very close to, $1,000. What do I think overall? I think it's well worth it. I think I'm not going to have any problem selling it if I want to. Problem that I run into, which is kind of comical, is I always tell myself I want a utility trailer. I want to have one for when I need to haul wood or large pieces of lumber or anything like that. But I keep buying them. I fix them up. I sell them. And I keep making money, and I figure, oh, well, I'll keep the next one. I'll keep the next one. I just haven't done it. So this is about the 4th or 5th. I did help a friend. We went in, 50-50. So this is like about the 5th trailer that I've actually played around with and flipped for a profit. This one, am I going to keep it or not? I'm not sure yet. I'm probably going to hang on to it for a while. I'm in no rush to get rid of it. This is the way that it turned out. The only thing left to do is to repack the wheel bearings. I don't think I'll do a video on that. There's a ton of them out there on YouTube. But, this is what I did. This is how I went about it. You can drop a comment if you think that there's a better way or you had any other suggestions. I'm the Home Handyman. I hope you folks enjoyed the video. I hope you click subscribe and continue to follow me and give me a thumbs up. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next video and the next topic. Bye-bye.